Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Wednesday, September 3rd. This is episode 75 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe. Couple weeks off, but we're back here with our NFL season preview episode. We'll be back over the weekend as well, previewing more of the week one games. At the time of this recording, it's Wednesday night, so we're just about 24 hours away from the NFL season kicking off. By the time many of you are watching this, it might already be game day. We might just be hours away. Either way, the football season's back. Cowboys, Eagles tomorrow, Friday game, college football Saturday, got full slate of Sunday game, Monday night football. We got football all weekend long. Exciting time. DiMari, the wait is over. We're back. How's it going, man?
I am great, and yes, we are back after a long hiatus, a few weeks in between our last show. But we're back, and like you said, full slate of football. Week one of college, kind of this Saturday that just passed. Thursday's game, Friday's game, like you mentioned. Best time of the year. This is when grass starts to smell a little different. Weather seems to probably get a little cooler. Few degrees. That's how you know football is back. But yes, we are now in full swing, and I am so excited. College, I am so excited. NFL, not too much, but I'm just glad that we're back.
Yeah, the a lot of Arch Manning, tank for Arch Manning, number one overall pick fans took a bit of a hit this weekend when you look at the
Yeah.
college slate. Did not look good against Ohio State. Not panicking, but just figured I'd throw that out there. You've seen a lot of fans, of course, already crown Arch Manning if he even comes out because we don't even know about that. And we knew that going into the game. But yeah, definitely a lot of quarterbacks to look for in the college football season. You had Klubnik and Nussmeier face off on Saturday night. Bill Belichick got destroyed. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun with about every celebrity in attendance. They completely no-showed. So I got a lot of joy out of that. I consider 1-0 already from a Jets fan. So we'll see how the rest plays out. But yeah, we'll get into our full NFL season preview here, division standings, some playoff Super Bowl pick as well. But we got to start with the Cowboys trading away Micah Parsons. When he requested the trade, I kind of just gave you the floor, so I'm going to do the same here. They get Kenny Clark 2 first-round picks, but they trade away an elite pass rusher. The deal that I did not think actually would happen, but it did. The floor is yours. What are your thoughts, state of a Cowboys fan right before they face off against the Eagles and they don't have their star pass rusher anymore?
It kind of sounds crazy. It hit me hard Thursday, and obviously when it happened. It hit me hard Friday. As we got into Saturday, I kind of started to care a lot less. So just some reports that I saw on Twitter, I guess, and we've known this last season too, but Parsons and the podcast is obviously an issue. So apparently that was an issue throughout the locker room, which was, quite a big thing that kind of was a factor in them parting ways. Another thing was obviously, I think when it comes down to years in terms of the contract, I think Parsons wanted four, Jerry wanted five, so they couldn't see eye to eye. And then obviously you can kind of tell Jerry Jones is a very prideful guy. If he wasn't, he would have sold the team a very long time ago. Parsons is somewhat of a prideful guy, really not as bad as Jerry, but you kind of can tell from the Parsons angle what type of pride that he carries. So it really just seems like a bad breakup that needed to happen. And it sucks because outside of Abdul Carter and then obviously Micah Parsons, two greats that came from Penn State, they don't have another one currently off the edge right now. So like I was kind of telling people, like I was telling my dad, what hurts the most about it is the fact you don't just go find these guys every year in the draft unless Penn State, makes another one in the lab and he pops up sometime throughout the season. This is at once every 4, 5, 6 years where you find this type of player, this type of edge rusher that can really impact the game like Micah Parsons can. So from that angle of it, it sucks. And then the part of it that made me super angry was, 29 other teams that you could have possibly traded him to. You don't trade him to Philly, you don't trade him to San Fran, and you don't trade him to Green Bay, considering for the past 10, 15 years, those are the two teams that has completely punched you in the mouth come playoff time. So what do? You trade him to Green Bay, who we play week 4, Sunday night. Micah Parsons might break the single game sack record that night, for anyone that is kind of aware. So it sucks. It really does suck. You lose a pass rusher like that, who I love Micah Parsons so much, but then again, it gives you a sense of relief just because now you put all that to the side and you can focus on football. Now going into tomorrow, it's not about, okay, is Parsons playing? Is Parsons in shape? Is Parsons healthy? Now it's just about Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys, facing Philly. Obviously, it's going to have a huge impact on us this season, but uh, next man up mentality. So I guess we'll see what our rookie from Boston College can do. Can't pronounce his last name. Obviously, Dante Fowler. We'll see a few of these other guys get a shot. And luckily for us, we learned very quickly in 24 hours from now what that defense will look like without Micah Parsons.
Yeah, it'll be a big test right away against Philly, the defending champions. You mentioned the distraction. There is obviously no more of that. Last year, it was leading up. Last couple of years, it's been, what it was Cleveland, I think week 1, right? When leading up with the Dak contract that got done, I believe it was that morning. So yesterday, or going into tomorrow rather, you would have had the whole Micah Parsons. Do they get something done before kickoff? Is he even in Philly? Is he going to play? You do get that. But I totally agree with you in the assessment of where they traded him and also kind of what they got back. Nothing against Kenny Clark, but he's not an edge rusher, but he does not impact the game the way Micah Parsons does. And you mentioned it perfectly. Those players don't grow on trees. Maybe they have one of those guys right now. I think Donovan Izarake from Boston College, right? The second round pick this year. Can he develop into that? Maybe, but even developing into that is more so, can he just be a solid, productive pass rusher? Talking about filling Micah Parsons' shoes, you'd have to find another elite blue chip piece. I mean, this guy's had 52.5 sacks in 4 seasons. I mean, last year, if he would have played all 17 games, you're probably looking at a 16 to 17 potentially sack season out of him with the 12 and the 13 games. I think, I mean, you could have traded him to anybody else, even just forget those 3 teams, but just in the NFC in general, I would have looked to try and deal him. And you have to, find a trade partner, but any AFC team that wanted him could have been the smarter move, would have been the move that would have made maybe a little bit more sense just from not having to face him. In terms of Kenny Clark, and I guess just the overall return, I think they could have gotten more draft picks, especially considering the player they got back. Kenny Clark will be 30 in October. What are your thoughts on him? I mean, he has been a Pro Bowler, but he only had a sack last season. The numbers really took a dip last year. Jerry Jones continued to talk about the emphasis on stopping the run in his press conference, which, I mean, that's great. But if you can't get to the passer, then stopping the run doesn't matter anyway. What are your thoughts on Kenny Clark? Because last year he did take a step back. I was surprised it's all they got in return, to be honest.
Yeah, even before I get into the Kenny Clark angle, kind of how we mentioned off there when I was like, maybe 2 first Clark and a 4th, or Green Bay really has 49 receivers on the roster. Yeah. Obviously, we are still looking for that wide receiver 3. Jalen Tolbert is in that role this year with Pickens, sliding to 2. So I probably would have liked to see, Clark 2 first and I don't know, Romeo Doubs, who I think was was mentioned the air being traded, and then in return Dallas gives them Parsons and let's just say like a 5th, kind of just to balance it out more. So I'm right on board with you with that. But as far as Kenny Clark, I mean, I like him as a player. Obviously, he's not going to give you what you need as a pass rusher, but he is a very good run stopper. And I think Kenny Clark in the run stop aspect that no one's talking about is that's kind of more about Mozzie Smith being on his way out of Dallas, which is a conversation for a tired other day. But we both watched the Dallas team last year, me more than you, obviously, unless, the national TV games. They couldn't stop the run. The interior defensive alignment was a huge struggle for them. Mozzie Smith not playing his best is part of that. So obviously that was a point of emphasis this year. Obviously, Solomon Thomas as well they brought over. So they're trying to beef up that interior line for a reason. And I like Kenny Clark to do that. But like you just said, hey, teams don't even have to run the ball. We can sit here and throw for 430 on you every night because you can't rush the passes. So it's hard, for Kenny Clark's sake, it kind of feel bad for him because you are attached to a deal that big. So no matter how well you play or how bad you play, it doesn't matter because you were the swap for Micah Parsons. But hopefully Kenny Clark can just step in and be impactful for this team. And Jerry likes to throw him. We think, hey, we are close to the Super Bowl now. So if Kenny Clark can be that player, that will be great. But I don't see that.
Yeah, you make a good point with that. No matter what Kenny Clark does, he's not going to be Micah Parsons. So that's going to stick with him, which is unfortunate because he had, no control over this. But if he goes out there and plays his game and can get back to a little bit more sack production, a little bit more pass rushing production, he did have 7.5 in 2023, which was a career high, and then that dropped back down to 1. Again, rushing the passer is not his forte, and you're not going to need – or Kenny Clark can't be the difference in that area. You have to hope one of these other guys emerge. And I guess just in general, and I know all this happened right now, they don't have that, but you would have probably from a Cowboys perspective just preferred if you had more of a proven, and I know Dante Fowler's been around the league for a while, and he did have a good year last year with Washington, and he was with the Cowboys, previous 2 years before that, I think.
Yeah.
But even maybe another younger guy as opposed to, the Donovan Izaruke, or however you pronounce his name, the kid from Boston College in the second round, somebody that's a little bit more proven that can still get home to the quarterback minus Micah Parsons, because outside of like Dante Fowler, you're still pretty, questionable.
Yeah.
In terms of Green Bay, how high do you feel this raises their ceiling? Because now you've gotten, I've seen a lot of it already the last couple of days, and we'll get into our division predictions, but a lot of people look at Green Bay before this as a 10-win team, get to the wild card. Now people look at Green Bay as an 11, 12-win team that can make a deep run. How much you feel this bolsters them? They have, we know what they are capable of on offense. Jordan Love still kind of in that overrated range, I think, by many. Have a ton of receivers. Nobody really totally emerged, but a ton of young receivers. Defensively, you add Micah Parsons. Where do you feel they stand?
I am right on board. I guess I was spoiled an early one here. I have Green Bay at 11 wins, 11-6. I think they do get up. They could get up to 12. But obviously, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much until we get into some other things. But Green Bay should be a favorite. Obviously, not only in the NFC, but just a Super Bowl favorite, because this has always been a team that defensively they have struggled. They have some weeks where they look amazing. There's other weeks where they look terrible. But now you have that impactful player in Micah Parsons, and Green Bay's going to need him. You look at the two teams inside that division, obviously the Lions, the Vikings, we saw what they did offensively. We think the Bears are going to be a lot better with Ben Johnson. You need a Micah Parsons. So, it fit perfectly for them, and it's a good move for Green Bay. So I think with Parsons, obviously once he gets the back injury figured out, still questionable for week 1, supposed to be getting the epidural just to play week 1. So once you figure Parsons figures that out, obviously a huge boost, but I don't think Green Bay's success is going to lay off the hands of Parsons in that defense, and this could be for another show later on, but I still think it's going to be Jordan Love and what he can produce, considering I still think he's probably the most overrated quarterback in football. Yeah. I'm just going to say it. So it's going to be all on Jordan Love, but defensively, Super Bowl caliber defense at this moment with that addition is just all up to Love in his arm, and if he can stay healthy and kind of, what the guys around him do offensively.
Yeah, definitely. Jordan Love is the big X factor there. We'll see what kind of Jordan Love we get, and I am curious to see these division rankings and how we both kind of feel about Love. We'll talk about it. All right, let's get into that. And then we'll dive into Eagles, Cowboys, and get into even the Friday game as well a little bit later on, just to kind of close things out. So we can start in the AFC. We'll start with the AFC East, go down the list, go through the AFC, playoff seedings, and then roll on over to the NFC. So last year, AFC East, this is probably, I'd assume this is probably the easiest division to predict, maybe in the entire NFL. The NFC South's pretty, honestly, AFC East might just be so easy just in terms of who's going to finish 1 through 4. Even some of these other divisions, while they're not very strong. You maybe have questions of who's going to finish 2 through 4. But the Bills last year were 13-4, won the division, and that was it. Miami, Jets, New England all missed the playoffs. Miami went 8-9. Jets, of course, went 5-12. And New England in 1 year with Gerard Mayo went 4-13. I guess I'll start with you. Who do you have winning the division, and what are your predictions records?
It's going to be Buffalo again. I think we are in that stage where, New England, I'm sorry to bring this up, but where New England was almost a guaranteed lock to win it every year. I think that's Buffalo's time now. So we're 13-4 at Buffalo. Think they're going to win it, of course. New England and Miami, I both have 8-9, and I'm so sorry. Hopefully you can forgive me, but I have the Jets at 6-11.
6-11. Okay, I am pretty close to that. I have the Bills at 13-4, winning the division, only team to come out here, which is obvious, bearing something crazy. I have New England finishing in second at 8-9. And I actually have the Jets in third at 7-10. I think the wheels are going to fall off the Miami Dolphins this year. So I'm going to go Dolphins 6-11, and they finish in last. From a New England's perspective, I like what they've done this offseason. I like Drake May a lot. Mike Vrabel, proven coach, of course, comes in, former player, changed the culture. They should be automatically just that, 3 to 4 wins better. It won't take much for them to double their 4-win total from last year. So that's what I think they do. Miami is just so many questions. I mean, is Tua even going to play the whole year? How early until we see Zach Wilson? It feels like this Mike McDaniel-led team is one more little fracture away from it completely blowing up. The one advantage they have is they do have a relatively favorable schedule to open up. They only play one playoff team from a year ago in their first 5 games, and that's the Bills. Other than that, they get the Colts, the Patriots, the Jets, and the Panthers. So while I do think the Patriots will finish in front of them, doesn't mean the Patriots are unbeatable. And Jets and Carolina and Indy's probably the easiest there, but Jets and Carolina, both beatable teams. So they could potentially get off to a quick start, and that help them and kind of steer things, but they just feel like a ship that's taken on water, in my opinion.
Honestly, I put an asterisk next to the Dolphins because I think you said it perfectly. There's so many question marks. Is Tyreek Hill going to be there after the trade deadline?
Yep.
Is Danny going to be there halfway through the year? Right now, I believe A-Chain is questionable with injury. So let's say, I don't know if Jalen Wright is supposed to take over that spot if A-Chain can't go. But if it's Wright, if it's Ollie Gordon, the rookie from Oklahoma State, can they bring enough to the offense to kind of help, steer that offense? So there is an asterisk. The only thing with Miami that has me at 89, like you mentioned, the favorable schedule, but also let's say 3 years ago, this Dolphins team was very good, very fun to watch. A lot of the similar weapons on the offensive side, just they've been dealing with so many injuries. So I think if they can stay healthy and then bearing the situation with Hill, McDaniel, that type of stuff, 8-9, but a swap with the Jets and the Dolphins is not crazy, all depending on what the Dolphins kind of look like at our, November mark of the season.
Yeah, and I'll also throw in, too, the questions on offense, like you mentioned, some of those, Tyreek Hill, Tua's health, running back, just coach in general, which is, kind of encompasses everything. But the tight end position is ugly. I mean, you have Darren Waller coming out of retirement. You have a couple guys that have never even caught touchdowns. I believe there was only one out of those couple tight ends. There was only one. I don't think any of the active tight ends on the roster outside of Waller have caught an NFL touchdown. So that is terrible. And then you defensively, right, they make the trade with Jalen Ramsey. That also, meant moving on from Jonnu Smith. And you look at their cornerback room, it is also really, really ugly. I know they picked up Rasul Douglas, but as kind of a depth piece there, veteran, but it is still very questionable and very concerning. And they did add Micah Fitzpatrick. So their safety room is not terrible. Ashton Davis is the other safety, former Jet. He's okay, but he's not a starting level safety. So it's they've got a lot of holes. They've kind of just plateaued where they haven't really gotten much better. They've just began on this trend to get worse, getting worse. And I do agree to your point, though, where it's funny. If you had to pick the Patriots, Jets, or Dolphins out of those three teams, which team most likely to make the playoffs or have a big season, it probably would be Miami, just because of Tua's track record, Tyreek Hill, and what they, they're not that far off from winning games and being in the playoffs and being, they almost won the division until the last game of the regular season against Buffalo 2 years ago. I feels like they have maybe the highest ceiling out of those teams, but potentially the lowest floor. So that's the AFC East. Buffalo will, I don't know when they'll be taken down. I think the only chance Buffalo struggles is if Allen would to go down. That's really the only way.
And for the sake of the first time I can remember in a very long time, with a very good fantasy quarterback, I need Josh Allen wrapped up in bubble wrap. For my team. So let's Yeah.
No, and he plays. He's got the consecutive start streak, and last year with Buffalo, the big question was, no receivers, and everybody was down on the Bills, and that Allen clearly proved that to be wrong. So that's the AFC East. Moving on now to the AFC North. This is the first interesting division here. Who do you got 1 through 4 here?
Ravens to win it. I think Ravens end up winning it at 12-5. Cincy right behind them at 11-6. I think that defense is slightly better this year. I think we've talked about this before. They just need to be average. They don't need a top 10 defense. Middle of the pack, I think, is enough to get Cincy back to the playoffs. So 11-6 for Cincy. We're gonna go 9-8 for Rodgers in Pittsburgh, and 5-12. Which 5, I feel like I was being quite generous with the Browns in their situation, but 5-12 for the Browns. I feel like they find a way to sneak out a few that they probably shouldn't win.
Yeah, I'm right on board there. A little bit of different records. I'm going to go big year for the Ravens. I'm going to go 14-3, 13-4, 14-3. Either way, I think they get the 1 seed, however that is done, whether that's beating Buffalo week 1 and then they have the tiebreaker. So I'm going to go Ravens 1 at 14-3. Agree with you. The Bengals will make the playoffs. I think they're 1 less win. I think 10-7. So, with the Ravens winning an extra game, say that's against the Bengals. So I'll subtract 1 from Cincy there. Right on board. Totally agree. Steelers 9-8. That just screams the Steelers every single year. I don't think this time, though, it gets them into the playoffs because the Bengals are going to be better, and that's just the way I think things are going to play out here. But 9-8 season, that's the Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers special at this point. And 4 with the Browns, 5-12, 4-13. Honestly, I feel like I was being generous. I have them at 4-13. I thought about putting 3-14, but I don't know. There's no way they're worse than they were last year, right?
Yeah.
It feels like with Flacco, can they at least win 1 more game than they should have last year? So I'll go 4-13 with the Browns. Not that that's any good. Now, here's a question: do we see Shedeur?
The only way we see Shedeur, I personally think, is Flacco gets hurt, Dylan Gabriel steps in, Gabriel is terrible for 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's Shedeur. Which, obviously, too, coaches aren't really too much swayed by the fan base and the fan base chants, but Gabriel steps in game 1 is not looking too good. We're going to hear some Shedeur Sanders chants, but I don't think it's going to be that early. It's going to be a few games for DG to kind of, try to go out there and make something happen. But I think that's the only way possible.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I think so. It's probably Gabriel struggles. I could see a world where they do throw Gabriel out there at some point, even with a healthy Flacco. You look at their schedule, it is brutal. Not that, again, when you're a really bad team, any schedule looks brutal because pretty much everybody in the league's better than you. But they open up with their first 4 games: Cincy, Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit. And that is just terrible. Now, Cincy, you can maybe say, is a soft landing spot for Flacco because their defense, I still don't think would be very good, and I think that's what's holding them back. If Cincy's defense was just slightly above average, they can win the division, but I still think their defense is going to be – I think it's going to be better than last year, but I still think it's probably going to be below average when you look at the entire NFL. They'll probably be somewhere in the 20s. But, I mean, that's just brutal. And then they play Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Miami, New England, so it softens up maybe a little bit late there before the bye. If they're like 0-5, they're 0-6 going into that Miami game at home, could that be like the Dylan Gabriel kind of soft landing spot game where they get Miami at home? If they're struggling at that point, that could be a game where, they throw them out there. Or even after the bye, they play the Jets. Potentially, if they're 1-7 at the bye week, they make a change. It'll be interesting. I don't know what's going on in Cleveland. And the crazy part is they drafted the 2 quarterbacks. They bring Flacco back, and there's still a good chance that they're drafting a quarterback again next year.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
It was so funny. I've told you about this guy before, but my friend Jared that I work with, who's the Browns fan, tell you he watches us all the time. LSU Clemson game, we're out at some sports bar watching the game together with some of our other friends. And then right before that game started, he goes, I'm so excited to watch one of the 2 future Cleveland Browns quarterbacks, and Nuss Meyer or Cade Klubnik. And I mean, Cade didn't look too well. But seems like a lot of Browns fans think they may still be taking a quarterback again this year. So I guess from Clemson, South Carolina, Death Valley to the Dog Pound, it's looking like it might be Cade Klubnik.
And probably 2 years from now, they'll be back looking at quarterbacks.
Drew Allers or something in 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the AFC North. Pretty predictable. Does Tomlin hold on to his job? I guess that's one more thing I'm just thinking of. Talking about, we know what Baltimore's going to be. We know what Cincy's going to be. They're going to be high-flying offense. Defense is going to suck pretty much, but I think they'll be good. I think they'll be better. Baltimore's Baltimore year in and year out. It's just about finishing now. Is Tomlin back? I mean, Rodgers, that's it. I think this is it for Rodgers no matter what. I don't think he's playing another year. I know he mentioned it on McAfee, and then he kind of backtracked when he was asked about it again, but especially if they don't make the playoffs, he's not coming back. Is Tomlin back, though? Because now this is not making the playoffs. He is?
He is. If they go 9-8, even if they go 8-9, I think he's going to the playoffs. I think they're going to consider this Rodgers year and experiment, kind of see how that goes. They will give him 2 years with Will Howard. If Will Howard and Pittsburgh do not do anything in those years, we could be talking about Mike Tomlin on the chop block. But I think he's going to have at least another few years with Pittsburgh.
Now, here's my question with Pittsburgh. I know they have Will Howard, but could there be a world where if they finish 9-8 and they love one of these quarterbacks in the draft, they trade up? Because that could be the opportunity to go and get a franchise quarterback. It'll be interesting. They probably will just roll with Will Howard, but it could be a world where if Tomlin's kind of knowing that his time's almost up, tries to go all in, because if Will Howard doesn't work, he's not going to get that opportunity if this class is loaded and most people come out.
Here's the thing. With obviously first week, we have a long season to go of college football.
Yeah.
But truthfully, a lot of the guys where they had at the top didn't really look too well. Arch didn't look great. Klubnik didn't look great. Nussmeier didn't necessarily, light up the scoreboard, but you didn't expect him to. I mean, very good Clemson team, very good Clemson defense. Drew Aller really can't say much about his performance considering who they played.
Yeah, it was Nevada. Right now, he kind of did what he was supposed to.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to say, but honestly, the best quarterback that I saw this week, this is going to be a scorching hot take. Best quarterback that I saw this week was Josh Hoover, and TCU absolutely lighting up, North Carolina's defense. Now, that is not a Josh Hoover shot whatsoever. I think he is a very great pro-ready quarterback in terms of, a pocket passer. He throws for a lot of yards. He's accurate. Turnovers are down. But then again, if you're Pittsburgh, depending on how things go, if Josh Hoover, let's say, moves up to QB3, potentially outplay some of these other guys, I don't think you're taking him with, early, somewhere in the top 10. So, again, a lot of college football left to be played. So, right now, I am going to say no. they will not move up and take a quarterback. But depending on how these others look as the seasons go along, it's not ridiculous for you to throw that out there because we've seen it done before with other teams.
Yeah, and I would even throw just two other ones out there. Fernando Mendoza from Indiana wasn't anything, and I don't think he'll be drafted that high, but Lenore Sellers started really well and had the rushing touchdown, but he only finished with like 25 rush yards. He had the 16-yard run, and that was it. He had the one touchdown. He threw for over 200 yards, but it wasn't anything crazy, but he's another name. A lot of college football left to be played. But you always kind of know, though, in a class like this where there's 6 to like 8 names that are being brought up, there's going to be one or two that's going to fall off and not have good seasons. So we'll see which group that is. All right, moving on now to the AFC South. This is similar to the AFC East. One playoff team here?
Of course.
Who do you I'll go. I guess I could go with this one. I got Houston 10-7 winning the division. Jacksonville behind them at number 2, 8-9. I think they'll be better than they were a year ago. Still not good enough, though. I still think there's some questions with that defense on how bad it was. I think it'll be improved, but I think we're also both just not very high on Trevor Lawrence. So I'll go 8-9 with Jacksonville, and they could sneaky be in the market for a rookie quarterback because another year of average play from Trevor Lawrence is it's going to be time in Jacksonville to start to look at some other options. I have Tennessee at 6-11, maybe a little bit high. But I do think Cam Ward's going to have some games, and these last 2 years, seeing some of these rookie quarterbacks go out there and dominate. Who knows? Tennessee might be that surprise team this year, but I'm going to be conservative and say they go 6-11. And the Colts, this might be generous, but I have them at 5-12, finishing in last. Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, maybe one of us will be playing quarterback at some point for them this season. Either way, they'll be 5-12. I could see 4-13, but with the way the division is, they very easily could pick up, 2 wins in the division against Jacksonville and Tennessee. So I'll go 5-12.
Interested. Almost identical. Just a few things swapped there. Houston, I'm right on with you with 10-7. I actually have Jacksonville at 9-8 with an asterisk next to it, /8-9. And I am right on board that they could be looking at a potential quarterback this year. Another name I left out, Carson Beck, who looked pretty good for Miami. So could see him kind of move up the rankings as well. Jacksonville could be a spot for Carson Beck. I have the Colts at 6-11. I gave them the edge over Tennessee just because the experience from Daniel Jones, which really not saying much experience Daniel Jones in one sentence. But also I just trust their weapons a little more. Obviously, Michael Pittman has been quite a proven receiver, underrated guy. You bring Tyler Warren over. You still got Jonathan Taylor. I think A.D. Mitchell takes another jump. And I love Josh Downs. So I think their weapons give the slight edge to the Colts over in Tennessee. But then the Titans, I have 5-12. Cam Ward's will have a good year, but I just don't trust their weapons. I don't trust their offense. This could just be pure hate watch, but I used to watch it. I had Tony Pollard, unfortunately, last year on fantasy. A lot of let Tony Pollard get you down the field and throw the ball 4 times in the red zone. So Tennessee forever has a hater out of me, but I just think Cam Ward doesn't have enough when it comes to terms of weapons first year, so 5-12.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I don't expect the Titans breakout, and you do mention the receivers, not a ton around Cam Ward. You look at what C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels had. Daniels had T.J. McLaurin. Stroud had the one good Dalton Schultz here, and then he also had Nico Collins, of course, Tank Dell, who really emerged. You look at the Titans room, just on paper, those receivers aren't as good. I mean, Calvin Ridley's not a Nico Collins or a Terry McLaurin. Tyler Lockett's near the end, and Alec Aymanor, your number 3, essentially. Your slot he's a rookie. So not a ton of weapons there. I think Cam Ward, though, he'll make some plays. He'll have a solid season. Yeah. I do question with Tennessee if Brian Callahan is the long-term coach. Last year was just so bad that I could see a world where if they go 5-12 or 6-11 or 4-13, whatever, even if you do see some positives with Cam Ward, he's somebody to keep an eye on as potentially out after year 2. Would they want to do that? Would they want to do that though if Cam Ward has some success in his offense and then change schemes? Who knows? But he's one of those coaches. Last year was so bad. You heard some rumblings that they would maybe move on last year. That's how bad it was. So Tennessee's in a very interesting spot. Very interesting. Like you hope they have the quarterback, but from a roster perspective, they've got a long way to go in terms of just talent and building around Cam Ward, and who even knows if they have the coach. So that's the AFC South. Another year of just Houston and everybody else. And I don't view Houston as that 11-12 win team either. Like we both predicted 10-7. I think that's kind of Houston is. I think they're a grind through the regular season, have some ups, have some downs, and then get to the postseason, and they've won a game each of the last 2 years. I could see that happening again, and then hoping that CJ Stroud and this offense can have one of those big breakout games where you're able to finally beat a Kansas City or somebody like that. All right, now to the West. Now I want to start with you. Who do you have in the West? Both of us have 3 teams here because we've got 4 playoff teams so far, so we both have 3 coming out of the West. Who do you have coming out of the West?
That is crazy. He put me on the spot.
Yeah.
All right. This is not the year. The Chiefs will not win the division this year. They will not. They will not. They will not. I think Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos win that division at 12-5. I don't know. You were higher on the Broncos than I was. I kind of bought into the hype as the offseason went along. Looking at some of the additions, obviously the 2 they got over from San Fran and Greenlaw and Hufanga. Evan Ingram coming over, I think completely boosted it. I love the J.K. Dobbins signing. You draft R.J. Harvey out of UCF, which was one of the better runners in football, just didn't get the recognition he deserves. And then it's Sean Payton. So you get another year of Sean Payton. I love what the Denver Broncos are going to do this year. Obviously, with probably you can argue the best defense in football. They're going to put it all together. Last year, they did enough to get into the playoffs. Obviously, that loss to Buffalo kind of showed you the flaws with Denver. I don't think it's happening again. I like the Broncos at 12-5. Right behind them, I'm going to go Chiefs in second at 10-7. I think they slipped off a little bit. I think we both have agreed on that. In a few episodes, we think Chiefs aren't as good. Chargers at 10-7, right behind them. So, yes, you mentioned it just now. 3 from the AFC West get into the playoffs. And I think we both agreed on that actually throughout the offseason that this division will be the one to get 3. And then Raiders at 8-9. I do like what they did with Geno, Amari Cooper, which we did call, by the way, before it even happened. We called Amari Cooper, but I don't think it's enough for the Raiders. So give me 8-9.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. I'm buying the Broncos stock. I think out of Daniels and Bo Nix, I could actually see, and we'll get into this here in a second when you switch to the NFC, I could see a potential drop off a bit from Daniels for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because we just hated on them so much last year and they were so, going into the season, we were making fun of, Bo Nix and Stidham and Zach Wilson and that whole cast of characters. But for whatever reason this year, Sean Payton, like you mentioned, they added Evan Ingram, J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey. They've got a ton of pieces offensively. I expect a big year from Bo Nix, so I'm going to go Broncos 12-5. Chiefs, I'm going to go 11-6, so 1 game better, but I do think they finish in second. 11-6. Chargers, I have at 10-7, so right there with you. And then the Raiders, I think, will finish above 500. I think the Raiders will go 9-8. I've been high on the Raiders this offseason, but when it comes down to it, I don't love the Jacoby Myers situation. I know they added Amari Cooper, but just that situation I don't love. And just looking at the quarterbacks, expecting Bo Nix to take a big jump. You have Mahomes, you have Herbert. Geno's number 4 in that division. So I'm going to go Raiders just on the outside. In any other division, they're probably making the playoffs. They're probably a 10-win team, but in this division, I don't see it happening. What a difference in perspective on the Broncos from a year. This time last year, we were getting ready to wait and see when Zach Wilson would play. But, yeah, I just think Bo Nix is going to have a huge year. I think he's going to have a huge year. Sutton, Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims did some good things. You have you have Dobbins, who's a veteran, R.J. Harvey. The run game should be vastly improved, and the defense is just dominant. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Alex Singleton, the secondary. You added Hufanga from San Francisco at the safety spot. You have Pat Surtain. I mean, they're just so good. Riley Moss, they're loaded with pieces in the secondary, linebackers, defensive line. It's been one of the biggest turnarounds we've seen. A defense that was one of the worst in football, letting up 72, being arguably the best.
Hot take. This defense, this Denver Broncos defense will be better than the defense that Peyton had when he was there. That year they completely smothered Carolina, was at 43-9 in the Super Bowl, I think. This defense will be better than that defense. Hot take that I'm dropping. You guys will come back to this episode and remember I said that.
I could see that. And the crazy part is with that team is this offense should be better. Because that Broncos offense that year was terrible. Peyton Manning was actually awful. I think he ended with more interceptions than he did touchdowns in the regular season. That was just the defense just dominating and destroying teams. We all know what happened in that, then in the year prior, Super Bowl 50, what happened in that Super Bowl as well, or a couple years later, Super Bowl 50, what was it? 24-10, I think, against the Panthers, and the whole Cam Newton situation. When he jumped away from the football. Yeah, I think Denver has a big year. All right, so playoff seedings for the AFC. What do you have? I guess I'll read through. I have Baltimore 1, Buffalo 2, Denver 3, Houston 4. So those are your division winners. In terms of the wild cards, I've got Kansas City at 5, Chargers at 6, and I'll throw Cincy at 7. I'll say the Chargers have the tiebreaker, Cincy at 7. And we get a potential Cincy-Buffalo wild card matchup, which I think would be a lot of fun, and a potential first-round exit for Buffalo. So that's what I have.
All right. A little different here. I have Buffalo at the 1 seed. I have Baltimore hosting the Chargers. So obviously Baltimore at 2, Chargers at 7. Denver Chiefs matchup with 3 and 6. Denver being 3, Chiefs being 6. And then Houston and Cincy meeting up. Houston obviously getting that 4 seed, winning the AFC South. Cincy finishing at 5, giving them the tiebreaker. Well, not necessarily tiebreaker. They have a slightly better record than Chiefs and Chargers. I have both of those at 10, Cincy at 11. So that's how my AFC plays out.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to kind of have the top of the AFC and the bottom, like middle of the pack. I think you expect it to be Houston and then Denver, some combination of that. But how the one plays out and kind of how the bottom of it plays out really interesting. And you could lead to some really interesting matchups wild card weekend. So that's the AFC. All right, now moving on to the NFC. This is a lot tougher, I think, than the AFC, figuring out these 7 teams. So we'll start in the East. We'll start with you. Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Giants. What do you got?
Philly at 12-5. I know there's always the talk about no repeat division winners. I think it's going to be Philly. A little bit of a Super Bowl kind of. I don't want to call it. I'm gonna say it's a hangover. That's what it is. 12-5 for Philly. Washington at second place at 11-6. I do think they slip off a little bit, but I think they are still good enough, even considering how their schedule looks. I still think Washington gets to 11. Dallas at 9-8. And then the Giants at 5-12 in last place.
I'm pretty right spot on. It's funny. I was trying to figure out whether or not to put the Eagles at 13-4 or 12-5 because I kind of agree with you. I could see a little bit of that Super Bowl hangover where they're not going 14-3, but they maybe are more of a 12-win team than a 13-win team where they're kind of 2 wins short from or 2 wins less than they were last year. So I guess for the sake of it, because it does kind of impact, I'll set on 13-4. And then the Commanders go 10-7. I think they take a decent step back from where they were last year. Ton of questions about that running back room right now. I know they have Eckler's, a couple young pieces, but still kind of something that to keep an eye on. I do think there is a chance Daniels takes a little bit of a step back. So I'll go Washington at 10-7. Dallas, I could see at 9-8. I threw them here at 8-9. and then Giants at 5-12. So I agree with your take on the Giants. Question about the Giants: when do we see Jackson Dart? Because it's definitely happening, in my opinion.
That's tough. I want to say after their bye, but I'm not too sure because it just makes me think of how bad does Russ have to play in order to kind of start looking a different direction. Very different and we talked about this previous episode, the coach situation with the leash of Richardson, Daniels, Jones, whoever the starter. I think you have more of a leash with Russell Wilson, but at what point, Dable, considering job probably on the line, are you like, hey, let's go to Dart? So I am honestly not too sure.
Yeah, I think with the Giants, I think it's going to be more so about the record. Like, even if Russ is playing well, but they're 0-5, 0-6, at that point, Dable, you're going to want to coaching for your job a bit, but also to prove to ownership that. And I do think Dable with getting Dart, I do think even if they're a 4-win team this year, 5-win team, I do think they're back. But in that situation where they're 0-5 or 1-6, whatever, even if Russ is playing okay, but they're just losing because they're playing good teams, I think you look at that and say, okay, then you bring in Dart. And if you see positives out of Dart, Dable returns if they start to win some games. I mean, you look at this schedule. They start out with Washington and Dallas on the road, Kansas City, and they do play Washington tough. They always have.
Yeah.
Dallas on the road, Kansas City, the Chargers. Those are your first 4 games. I mean, that is a brutal stretch. There's a chance they're 0-4. If they're 0-4, I could pinpoint and say earliest we see Dart could be that week 5 game against the Saints because that's a soft landing spot. They're 0-4 at that point. Season's pretty much over. Now, the only issue with that Saints game is then you'd throw Dart out there, and then in 4 days later, you'd have a short week against Philly on Thursday night. So that is tough for a rookie quarterback to play 2 games in 6 days or 5 days, whatever it is. It'll be interesting. The Giants are a lot better than they were a year ago. Just the schedule puts them in a position where they're still going to lose a lot of games, and their record's not going to show it. All right, so that's the East. Let's move on to the North. Another very interesting division. I think our predictions might be totally different here, so I guess I'll toss it over to you again. What is your top, your top four, whatever, for the North?
Green Bay at 11-6. I think Lions slip up a lot. Ben Johnson, leaving is going to play a huge factor. I got Lions at 10-7. Vikings at 8-9, kind of with an asterisk. I feel like the Vikings could be a 9, maybe even 10-win team. This is all depending on JJ, but I don't know what JJ is going to look like. 8-9 is what I got him now, again, with an asterisk. And then Chicago, I'm not a big Caleb Williams believer. Still 7-10.
I'm a little bit different at the top. I think the Lions go 12-5. A lot of people are doubting the Lions, and rightfully so. 12-5, though, is still a decrease from what we saw from the last year where they went 15-2. I do think they have a little bit more bumps in the regular season, and it's not just easy coasting, if you will, which has kind of been the case for them the last couple of years. So I'll go Lions 12-5. I'll go Packers 10-7. And then I will go Vikings 9-8. I think they do finish a tick above 500. And then I'll go Bears 8-9. I agree with you. I'm not a Caleb Williams believer. Ben Johnson in that division year 1. I don't think they win a ton. I don't think they're a terrible 5-6 win team, but I'll go 8-9 for the Bears, finishing last. Vikings just missed it with J.J. McCarthy at 9-8. Lions and Packers atop that division. This is really interesting with Caleb Williams because at what point is it, if Caleb Williams struggles this year, you start to have the question of if he's the guy. Because now it's 1 year of Ben Johnson. If they win 8 games, it's kind of getting laid out early.
And I think this has to be the year. I mean, I hate to sound like that guy, but I think for people that we tend to label, I'm going to say the media tend to label as generational. They should have more heat, more pressure on their backs when they don't play too well. That's why it's so strange when Trevor Lawrence gets away with what he gets away with. But this isn't just a guy that they thought would step in and be good enough to lead this team to a few playoff games, a few division titles, or whatever. They label this as generational, and we have yet to see it. They have weapons. You have Ben Johnson. This has to be the year Caleb Williams figures it out. And if he doesn't, yeah, I think I'm right with you that you kind of start to look at him a little differently. And maybe, I don't want to say you draft a rookie, but you float the ideal out there because, another mediocre year, just say this year and the year following, it's going to be time to move on.
Yeah, I agree. It's Bears fans. Here we are again. No 4,000-yard passer for as long as time at this point. I think JJ McCarthy shows you a decent amount this year. Caleb does not, which is very interesting. Kind of turning of the tables in the North. All right, let's keep moving here. NFC South, similar to the AFC South, probably only one team. But what do you got here?
Tampa Bay at 1 at 10-7. Hot take here. I'm on the Carolina train. I'm going 9-8 for Carolina. Third place, we got the Falcons at 8-9. And then first place, I have the Saints with the first overall pick actually at 2-15.
Ooh, I like that. It was funny. I was going to put the Saints at 2-15, but I kind of felt bad. So I threw them an extra win. Saints, I agree, at the bottom at 3-14. Going back up to the top, they're going to have the number one pick. Spencer Rattler's not going to be any good. Tyler Shook, I don't even know what the start share is going to be. It's probably going to be like Rattler for 10, Shook for 7, maybe. Who even knows? Tampa 11-6, they win the division. Carolina 8-9, Falcons 7-10. So I agree, Carolina will be improved. I think they're probably still maybe 1 year away. There's a good chance Carolina has that 8-9 type of season where next year then they really take off and challenge Tampa in that division and potentially get 2 playoff teams. Carolina's kind of on the Detroit Lions trend a little bit here. They started out so poorly last year. If you go back to Dan Campbell's first year and a half, he won 3 games year 1. And then year 2, they were, I think, 1-6. And it got to the point where they were in all of those games, but you got to start winning those games. Finally, they started winning them, finished 9-8 that year. And then the next year they made the playoffs. Last year, of course, they went 15-2. Carolina, a little bit of that trend where it was really rough at the beginning. Bryce Young got benched. Organization looked dysfunctional, but Bryce Young came back. They started to play better this year. Can you be that 8-9, 9-8 type of team and then next year take that big step? I think that's the path for Carolina. What do you expect out of Penix?
I don't know. I don't trust the weapons. I trust.
Yeah.
It's actually, all right, before I even get into that, it's kind of so hard to really judge Atlanta considering Arthur Smith was offensive coordinator. So that's what makes it tough. I'm not too sure. I'm not huge on Drake London, even though I do think he's a very good receiver. Not big on London, not big on Pitt. I like Bijan. He's kind of up and down. I don't know what they expect from those weapons.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest. So I don't think they're going to be terrible. I don't think Penix is going to be terrible. Like, if I had to take a prediction, maybe we're talking about 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but I don't think he's going to be anything, crazy for Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love the weapons either. It's another year of Kyle Pitts talk, which is every year at this point. So I agree. I think it'll be a kind of an average season for him.
Yeah.
All right, moving on now to the West to close things out. What do you got for this one? 2 teams coming out of here with the way our predictions have gone.
That is correct. So first place at 12-5, my Super Bowl champ that I've been saying for quite some time now is the Rams. Matt Stafford rides off on a white horse, and that's the end of his career. I like the Rams here at 12-5. Give me San Fran with a bounce back year at 10-7, even considering what's going on with Ayuk. I believe the injury, departure of Debo. I think 10-7. I think they do improve. Seattle at 9-8. Asterisk. Then Arizona at 8-9. I think this is the last year of Kyler Murray being in a Cardinals uniform. Hot take, but I don't think Arizona. I don't think they're gonna be too bad, but I don't think they're gonna be too good. So 8-9, and they are drafting a quarterback late round in 2026.
Yeah, time's ticking on Kyler Murray. Arizona's just they're kind of in that.
They're weird. Weird space.
Yeah, Arizona is very similar, but they're different at the same time to like a Pittsburgh. It feels like they're as far away from the Super Bowl as they are to the number 1 overall pick. They're kind of stuck in the middle. They're not going to be a 3-win team, but they're not also going to go out there and win 13 games. They're going to be in that 7 to 8 range, and that's kind of their ceiling. Last year, that was the case. So for my predictions, I'll go Rams. I agree they win the division. I'll go 11-6, San Fran at 10-7. I do think they bounce back. I think McCaffrey, for the most part, is healthy, but more importantly, Purdy, I think, has a solid season. Juwan Jennings has a hope. We'll see. I believe he should play this week, but dealing with the calf injury. But as long as he's healthy, he'll play a role. Kittle. They just got to stay healthy. I think they'll get back on track. I don't think they're going to be that 12, 13 win team they were a couple years ago. I think this is kind of nearing the end of this core. So I think they're going to be probably around that 10 win mark. Seattle at 8-9, and then the Cardinals at 7-10. So I have both those teams 1 game worse, but finishing 3rd and 4th. I think Darnold takes a step back. I think Darnold was more of a product of the Kevin O'Connell system, and we're going to get a good look at that this year, because if J.J. McCarthy goes out there and has a really good year and Darnold looks terrible, then that's what it is. But if it's vice versa, or McCarthy just looks terrible and last year was just an outlier, but I don't view Darnold in the same light I view Baker in terms of this is going to be some consistent trend. I don't think he'll play bad, but I think from a team perspective, it's not going to be good enough in that division.
Yeah.
Not really too many questions with this division. I guess, essentially Seattle, it's a 1-year contract for Darnold. So do you feel he is back?
It's kind of tough, but I'm going to say, yeah, I don't think we're going to give up on him too fast. I think how this kind of goes, let's say they do want to go quarterback next year, depending on where they land. You don't want to bring a rookie in and immediately throw a rookie in there, try to figure some things out. So I think they signed Darnold back to like a 1 year. You draft a rookie, maybe a later round guy. A Drew Allen or Carson Beck, kind of how things are shaped just at this moment. Again, I think that's going to change. You let them sit behind Darnold for a year, and then you kind of move forward and pass the ropes. But I think he'll be back.
Yeah, and they also have Milroe too, another name. You add a rookie and then Milroe, and you kind of have those developmental pieces behind Darnold. All right, so NFC playoff seeding, rather. I'll go down the list here. I have Philly 1, Detroit 2, Tampa 3, Rams 4. I think Tampa gets the tiebreaker. I think it's one of the bigger years. Tampa's always been kind of living in that number 4 spot. I think this is kind of finally their year. They take a step up. And in my 5 through 7 will be Green Bay, San Francisco, and I think Washington's the last team. And like I said, I think there's going to be some bumps for Washington this year. But in this playoff seeding, we do get another Washington Lions playoff game where the Lions will be home. Won't be the divisional round, but it'll be the wild card round. So potentially another opportunity for Washington to start a playoff run by beating Detroit. So what do you got for your seeding?
I have Rams 1, Philly 2, Green Bay 3, Bucks at 4 to round it out. Give me Washington at 5, Detroit at 6, and San Fran at 7.
All right. What are the wild card teams you think could go on a run there?
Out of the NFC, I think it'll be Detroit. And I think they are going to perform a little bit better this year with less expectation. Obviously, we're talking probably about Green Bay right now. Green Bay should win the division. So I think kind of being under the radar at that 6th spot, for me, obviously you would face Philly first round. But I think Detroit here can make some noise coming out of that wild card.
Yeah, I agree. In that scenario, definitely. All right, Super Bowl prediction. Who do you got in the big game, and who do you have taking home the Lombardi?
I feel like we never see the 2-1 seeds, but it's gonna be my 2-1 seeds. I have the Rams, I have the Bills facing off. I think Buffalo finally gets over the hump of Mahomes and the curse. But said it once, said it again, said it 3, 4, 5 times now. I said it at work. I'm going to keep saying it. The Rams will win the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford will ride off on the horse. Give me the Rams over the Bills.
All right. Do the Bills beat Mahomes in the playoffs? Allen finally gets him.
Because, hot take here. Remember how my seeding kind of worked? I have Denver at 3, the Chiefs at 6. Denver beats the Chiefs 2 times this year. Chiefs beat them once. That second time for Denver will be in the playoffs. The Chiefs are eliminated in the wild card round.
Wild card exit for Mahomes. I like that. I like that. I do like that. I've been kind of up in the air with this one. I'm kind of on board with you in terms of a team finally breaking through here. So I'm going to go with the Ravens coming out of the AFC. I think they finally break through in terms of who they beat to get there. I mean, they're the 1 seed, so I could see them if Cincy would to beat Buffalo in my hypothetical seeding scenarios, the 7 seed, they play them. Chargers, Chiefs, there would be a chance if the Chiefs beat the Texans in the wild card with the way I had this playing out, that they would potentially face them, assuming Denver and Buffalo takes care of business. They'd be the lowest seed, so they might have to beat Kansas City to get there. Either way, I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think they finally break through. I think this is the year. And then from the NFC perspective, this was tough. I wanted to put the Lions in there. There is part of me that I could see the Rams as well. I'm going to kind of be boring, though. I do think the Eagles do get back. But I'm going to go with the Ravens. I'm going to go with the Ravens winning the Super Bowl. But I think the Eagles get back.
Even off the Eagles kind of Super Bowl hangover, we still think they powered through playoff time.
Yeah, I think they're in terms of like the hangover. I think there's a chance to open up the season that they have a bit of a tough schedule to start, similar to last year. They started last year. A lot of people forget they were 2-2. They had that bad loss to Kirk Cousins went into their building and beat them last year on primetime. Philly had a couple bad losses early in the year, and then they really turned things up. I mean, heck, there was people calling for Sirianni's head early in the season. That's why Philly's Super Bowl run last year just does not feel real. He had A.J. Brown reading books on the sideline. He had them losing games to Kirk Cousins. Like, it just does. If that game wasn't played in snow against the Rams, they probably would have lost. There was so many things about that run that were strange. So I could see it being another one of those. And I know they lost some pieces, no doubt. But they have a bit of a rough start. You look at the second half of their schedule, much more favorable in terms of, they'll have they get the Raiders, they get the Chargers, who are tough, but I don't view the Chargers as like it's not the Kansas Cities, the Tampas, or the Rams, or even Denver. I think those teams are all better. They do get the Giants, of course, twice. But I think they're a team that could start slow again, and then they might be 3-3-ish, but then they have that stretch right before the bye week where they get the Giants twice and then the Vikings. I could see a world where they win those games, get back on track, bye week, come out and really turn it on. I'm going to go Eagles. It's boring, but and I think the Ravens win. I do think this is final of the year for the Ravens for whatever reason, but I think this is final of the year they break through. Just the Rams, I have questions with Matthew Stafford in the back and if he's going to hold up.
Yeah.
San Fran, I just don't love. Even though they're going to make the playoffs, I just don't see it. Tampa Bay, as much as I want to, I'm sorry. There's no way I can ever see Todd Bowles in a Super Bowl. It's nothing against him. It's just nothing against him. It's just there's no way that Todd Bowles makes a Super Bowl, right? No way.
We've seen crazier.
I guess we have. And Baker Mayfield could have a huge year, but Tampa to me is kind of a divisional round ceiling type of team. They'll win a wild card game, but that's probably about it. And Commanders and I think Green Bay is going to disappoint, to be honest. With all this hype now with Parsons, I think 10 wins is kind of a disappointment for them. So I'll go Philly. Ravens, Eagles. Ravens win it, though. And I hate saying that because I hate the Eagles and I hate their fan base. It's probably my least favorite team in the NFC. Not probably, it is my least favorite team in the NFC. Because for the most part, I don't have any hatred towards the NFC because obviously I'm a Jets fan. But yeah, that's what I got. All right, speaking of the Eagles, Cowboys-Eagles tomorrow night. Thoughts going into the game? Path to victory for the Cowboys. Optimism. 8.5-point favorites the Eagles are. Banner night. It's a big one in Philly. Dallas is, even with Micah Parsons, they would be the underdog. But now with the Micah Parsons trade, there's a lot of people that have completely counted Dallas out on the season. But more importantly, even on this game, there is a lot of people that have just chalked this one up as a victory for Philly. So does that rally the troops? Does Brian Schottenheimer rally the troops going into the link?
No. No. 8.5 is a lot. I don't know how this game will go. I don't know how it's going to sway. First and foremost, before I even get into it, briefly, Nick Sirianni's such an idiot. Oh, I didn't know it was ring ceremony night, and I didn't know the banner was being lowered. We're like, just shut up. Yeah. Trying to take the Jalen Hurts approach of football focus, nothing more. Just shut up. You are the first game. You are the first game to open up the season at home. What do you think they're going to do the rings in week 14? When you're at, like, come on, I hate Nick Sirianni sometimes. Like, guy's an idiot. But anyways, I don't know what to expect from this Dallas team. Again, it's going to look so different without Parsons. I don't know how the defense is going to look. I don't know if Diggs is playing. I don't know if Tyler Smith is playing. Like, there's so many question marks about tomorrow's game. What is going to be fun to watch, told you about him before, Kyer Elam, my friend from home, starting for Dallas, opposite side of Trayvon Diggs. So that's kind of interesting considering his dad started at safety for Dallas this time there. So, yeah, fun to watch for me there, but I'm not too sure. I don't know how this offense is going to look. I don't know how Dak's going to look. So many question marks. I think Philly is so much more proven. We kind of know what we're going to get from Philly. If you were a betting man, I would say take Philly minus 8.5. Only thing is Dallas and Dak Prescott do play Philly so tough when Dak plays, and I mentioned it off air. I do not believe Philly has ever blown us out with a healthy Dak playing, but we have blown them out with a healthy Dak. So this is going to be rough here, but I think Philly wins it tomorrow. I think Philly wins by 8.5. If I had to take a score prediction for tomorrow, I'm going to go 34-20 Philly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Dallas. I also just think, too, with all the outside noise, Schottenheimer's first game, this is kind of like the worst case scenario in terms of a matchup for Dallas when it comes to all the outside noise with Parsons. I think with Dallas, you would rather, if you could, flip week 1 and week 2, where you get the Giants week 1 and then the Eagles on Thursday night in week 2. And the reason I'm saying that is, like, I think just Dallas, this is such a, with everything that's gone on these last couple of days in that locker room with moving on from Parsons, all the outside noise, now you got to go on the road and play the defending champions. I think for them, it would have been much better if they had a little bit of a softer landing spot week 1 where they could beat the Giants while they're improved. They're still not very good. Beat a lesser team, kind of quiet the noise a bit, and then try and get into the season instead of just, the Dallas is being thrown to the wolves in a way. I think the biggest thing is they got to start fast. Like you can't. We both maybe expect a little bit of a slow start from Philly, ring ceremony, banner raising night, all that stuff. So maybe a bit of a slow start. Super Bowl hangover kicks in there. But yeah, I mean, it's just so many questions with some of these new pieces on offense, what the defense looks like. So I agree. I think Philly does win this game. I think it's a little bit lower scoring. I'll go 31-21. In terms of, I don't think Philly's going to put up 35 or more. I think it's 31-21, and then they win by 10. And I do think Dallas bounces back week 2, but I'll go Philly in this one. Friday game. Did the Chiefs start 0-1? Little Brazil, Kansas City, Chargers. I want to say they do, but I don't know. This was an interesting one.
I am going to say they do. You have no Rasheed Rice, to start
Yeah.
out. You obviously still have the weapons, but I don't think the Chiefs' lack of ability to run the ball well is going to. How was I about to word this where I don't confuse myself? Last year, their lack of ability to run the ball was kind of overshadowed, even though Mahomes did not play great last year whatsoever. It was kind of overshadowed still by like the Mahomes magic. I don't think that is the case this year. I think them not being too good of a running team is going to come back to hurt them. So give me the Chargers in this one. Very low scoring, but I do think the Chiefs are going to start out 0-1.
Yeah, I could see this without Rasheed Rice, right? 2 years ago against the Lions, they were out Kelsey, they lost. So missing some pieces. I'll go Chargers as well. I think the Chargers win this one. I think they find a way. The spread for this game, I believe, is let's see, 3.5 plus 3.5 for Chargers. So it'll be an interesting
Plus
one.
3.5.
Yes,
So
for Chargers.
they
For
are
the
the
dogs.
underdog.
Yep.
Okay.
They are the dogs.
Interesting.
All right. Any closing thoughts? Week 1 is here. Football's arrived.
Week 1 is here. Yeah, football is back. Can't wait for you guys kind of see both of our depression kind of kick in as the season goes on and as our teams start to struggle. But other than that, as usual, thanks for watching. We will be back on a very short week on Saturday with some game previews and some other things. Enjoy your football. Enjoy your college football. We are in full swing. Thank you as always.
Yes, appreciate you all tuning in. And totally agree. You will see us melt down very slowly here as the season rolls on. These last 2 years going into the season, both of our optimisms were both of our feelings towards our teams were a lot higher. Now it's much lower, but hey, I guess we can't be hurt, I guess, this year, right? I mean, the Jets will still find a way to hurt me, but this is the lowest expectations I've had for the Jets. And I can't even say years because, to be honest, 2022, I didn't have very high expectations. 2021, you usually don't have high expectations. The 2 years with Rodgers were the first time they actually talk about the Super Bowl and the Jets in the same sentence. So this is kind of back to normalcy with the Jets, where you go into the season and you just hope to be competitive and not get embarrassed. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But hey, maybe we're surprised. Maybe one of our teams will surprise us. We'll see. Both of our teams maybe will surprise us.
One more question before we officially wrap it up. Will one of us bring out the paper bag this year?
Probably, yeah. Definitely.
Right. I think so too. I think so.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's shaping up to be both these teams missed the playoffs, so probably puts you in a spot. Although I don't know, but either of these teams, like the Jets, have been they were a laughing stock last year. I don't think they'll be that bad, but there could be weeks where, like, if Justin Fields has a stinker, we might have to bring it out. Like, if he has one of these games where he goes, 8 for like 19 for 70 yards and the Jets lose like 31-3 because they can't move the ball more than 2 yards, maybe it's going to be a roller coaster year because there's going to be games, I think, where Fields is going to shine, and you're like, oh. And then there's going to be games where he struggles, which has been the issue. He hasn't been consistent. So there'll be a paper bag probably at some point. Look forward to the.
Right.
Hopefully it's not before Halloween. Can both these teams at least be in contention on Halloween?
Yeah, please.
Hopefully.
That would be great.
Last year the Jets were out of it before Halloween. So let's get to Halloween. That's the goal. All righty, that'll do it. Appreciate you all as always, and talk to you very soon. We'll be back Saturday.